Yes.
When the scholars of tafsir look at the different verses and they take the understanding of different letters standing for something. Where does that understanding? I mean, I'm sure it's I'm like genuinely trying to understand where does that understanding come from.
So the question is that when scholars of tafsir talk about the letters, as Imam Zaid did, that the ba is from bar, and the sin is from sami', and the mim is from min, where does that come from? Generally speaking, in terms of what is clearly established in the Qur'an by hadith and by outward knowledge, we don't talk about what letters mean. And if you look at the tafsir, for example, of Alif Lam Mim, a lot of tafsirs will say God knows best what it means, and they just pass on. But sometimes you have tafsirs that do talk about letters, and that can go back to the companions, it can go back to the successors of the companions, and they might say, for example, that Alif is Allah and Lam is Jibreel and Mim is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam delivered two types of knowledge, as Abu Hurairah tells us in the Sahih, in Bukhari and other collections. Abu Hurairah says, I received from the Prophet two camel loads of knowledge, the hadith that I give to you and the hadith that I don't give to you. A hadith which if I gave to you, you wouldn't understand them and you would be perplexed by them. So we also have an inner tradition which is in the hearts of people who fear God and who believe in God and is transmitted by them. So when Imam Zaid mentioned that about the ba and the sin and the mim and the alif and the lam and so forth, then he said, you might ask, well, where does this come from? What's the authority for that? And didn't he say that? That he just says that these are things that we can benefit. In other words, this is not knowledge that you have to believe, and it's not necessarily even certain knowledge, but these are things that are there to maybe awaken people to the depths of the message. And then when it comes to the knowledge of letters, that is a science that some people have, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. I don't know where they would get that. They might get it from spiritual illumination. But, it is, something that is not required of people to believe. So if you find it beneficial, you can benefit from it. Do you have a question? Raise your hand, you have to ask a question. Okay. Yes?
In Southeast Asia, they take the letters like a surah and they put it into numbers. Is there any validity to that?
The letters do stand for numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. What's number 1? Alif. What's number 2? Ba. What's number 3?
But what they do is they take it and they put it into some sort of I've seen it where they take it and put it into triangles and then give it to people and say,
I don't have that art myself. I don't know much about it. But what is letter 3? What is number 3? Jim. What is number 4? Dal. What is number 5? Ha. So every letter has a number, and that was true of all Semitic tongues. Abjad, Hawaz, Hutti, Kalaman. That's the old order of the alphabet, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, 1,000, 2,000, that's how it works. And that's how people used to count. It's a very difficult way to add, very difficult way to subtract. One of the great breakthroughs of Islamic civilization is that it takes the mathematical knowledge, the arithmetic and mathematics of the Persians, the Indians, the Greeks, the rabbis, and it creates this incredible mathematics. And that took about 550 years to culminate in algebra and almost in calculus. Maybe Muslims did have calculus, but they got very close to it. Hisab takamul. And how that mathematics grows up in Islam is very interesting. It's been studied by people. Fuad Sezgin has got some really good articles on it. But learning to count and to use numbers, which we call Arabic numbers, even though they actually were Indian, but the Arabs took them and they simplified them, they worked with them. That was a huge breakthrough. And where would science have gone if we were still using letters for numbers? In our Western tradition, 1 was what? I. And 2 was V, 2 was II, 5 was V, X was 10. Very difficult to add and subtract. Virtually impossible. Any other questions?
I have a question about Izzah. Is it referred to, Imam Zaid talked about Islam is Izzah.
It's Izzah.
Can you explain that a little more?
Izzah is honor, glory, dignity. You're Aziz. Al-ilmu Aziz. Knowledge is precious. In أعطيته كلك أعطاك بعضه. If you give it all of yourself, it gives you part of itself. وإن أعطيته بعضك لم يعطيك شيئا. And if you give it part of yourself, it doesn't give you anything, because it's precious. It is, full of honor. It is dignified and dignifying. And that's what Islam is. The Izzah belongs to God and to His Messenger and to the believers. You want to be respected, you want to be looked up to, you want to have dignity. You get that from belief, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
How does that relate to futuwa? Excuse my Arabic. Futuwa, like Islamic chivalry.
Futuwa. Well, we have futuwa and we have muru'ah. Futuwa is the quality of the fata. And today we talk about fatah. The fata is the noble youth, and the fatah is the noble young lady, young woman. Fatah, fatatun, fatah. And futuwa is, that quality that young people should have when they're like 16, 17, 18, 19. And usually the ideal of futuwa is Imam Ali, especially Imam Ali as a boy and a young man. Because even though he was very young, he would stand up for the Prophet ﷺ. So futuwa is a big thing in Islamic history. And Muslims like to cultivate futuwa. We could do that today also, it's very good. Boy Scouts, as they were developed, I guess, at the end of the 19th century, they got ideas like futuwa. So you have to do a good deed every day. And that's what futuwa would call for. And help the poor, help the weak, help the old lady across the street or the blind. That's all futuwa. But futuwa usually has to do with courage, giving yourself, living by principles. And muru'ah excuse me, muru'ah is manliness. It is the quality of a man when he reaches maturity. So when the fata grows up and becomes an adult, then he should have muru'ah, dignity, honor, generosity, forbearance, good character. And muru'ah is bigger, than futuwah. But the fata becomes, a person who has muru'ah. And muru'ah was really important for the Arabs in pre-Islamic Arabia, and then in early Islam also. And it is in many cultures, many Muslim cultures and non-Muslim cultures, that there's certain things you don't do. You treat your guests in a certain way. I knew people in Morocco who were not well-to-do, but if a guest came to them, they would sell their rugs. And they would even sell, their wool burnous, outer coat, which is you need it in Morocco in the winter, to get what they needed to give the guest tea and food and so forth. So that's muru'ah, that you will give the guest. And the Arabs have lots of examples for that. One of the beautiful examples in pre-Islamic poetry of muru'ah is of the Sayyid, who is the head of the tribe, has lots of followers. And he lights the bonfire on the hill or the mountain at night so people can know where his camp is. They can come to it to be fed and to be given something to drink. And then poor people come into his camp, who have nothing. They can't help with anything. And so he could just give them anything. They ate dinner, just give them the leftovers. And instead he goes out and sacrifices a camel for the poor people. And then he takes the best meat from the camel and he roasts it himself over the fire. And then he asks them, how do you want it? Do you want it rare, medium, well done? And so for Arabs, this is pre-Islamic, but it's like, dignity, honor, and doing things for the sake of principle. Because who are these poor people? They can't hurt you. They don't have tribes. They're not poets. They can't slander you or say bad things about you, that he's not generous. So that was regarded to be the embodiment of muru'ah. And may Allah give us these qualities. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Here, we received the people who told us about homeless people in the Peel area. Is that what it's called? I get it. Mississauga, Brampton, and Oakville?
Caledon.
Huh?
Caledon.
Okay, Caledon, okay. And to care about people like that and to help people like that is futuwah and muru'ah. And of course it's good character, it's good deen. You get a soft heart, you get lots of blessings, and it's an obligation to take care of people. That's a good question. Any other questions? Yes?
There tends, especially in contemporary times where there's a lot of things like gender role confusion and a misunderstanding of perhaps certain manifestations of futuwah and muru'ah in different times and spaces, and how do we, how do we, manifest those in current times and places? There's a lot of confusion between futuwah, muru'ah, and bravado, and this. And it's difficult for young people to navigate those differences. So a few rules of thumb.
I don't know that I know much about this kind of stuff, but these are things that, of course, have to be based on universal principles and not like on, gang mentality or anything like that. My wife is from the south side of Chicago, and we were married in 1972. And her sister had a little boy just before we got married, and his name was Damien. And I knew him for how many years? Maybe 32, 33 years. And one day he lived on the south side of Chicago, and he walks out of his mother's home and he's shot down dead right in front of her house. He dies on her steps, and she died a year later because he was her only child and she loved him a lot, and she just broke when he was killed. But the people who killed him were, in a gang, and there may have been something to explain it, but a lot of people say that there's no reason for there to be anything, because a lot of the gangs, to get the gang, you have to kill somebody. And sometimes they just kill people at random. So that's horrible. These things have to, inshallah I hope we would never have that in our community, but we certainly have to have values that are taken from like Imam Ali, as a feta. That's why, you had examples of that. Salah ad-Din is a beautiful example of muru'ah. And with the Crusaders, he showed that over and over again. Very honorable, very dignified, very generous, very forgiving. Muslims should cultivate these qualities, the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ. They bring great good. But I think also in our time, usually the Arabs, they talk about futuwa and muru'ah, and they have a male focus. Of course, they lived in patriarchal societies, but women also had similar principles to live by. And you may remember that when Hind embraced Islam and she came to the Prophet, she covered her face so that she wouldn't be known immediately, although the Prophet knew her once she began to respond to her questions. But he took the bay'ah from her, the oath of allegiance, and then among the things that she shouldn't steal, she shouldn't do this, she shouldn't do that, and she should not commit adultery. And when he said that, don't commit adultery, Hind said, Al-Hurratu tazni? A free woman will commit adultery? And this is because the Arabs had the sense of the hurr, of the free man, and the hurra, the free woman. And in their conception, and you see this in the Islamic tradition also, especially with the Sufis, because the Sufis have this notion of freedom. And freedom means to live by principle. In our society, freedom often means to do whatever you want to do. Maybe not principled at all. That I'm free, I can do what I want to do. And for us, when you're free, you can't do what you want to do. You have to do what is right. So hurriya and muru'ah, they also go together. And women also, the woman is hurra. And the hurra, she doesn't do these things. That's why Hind, who is a hurra, she said, I would never do that. Never. Not as a believer, not as a disbeliever. And those are beautiful conceptions. Very beautiful conceptions. May Allah make us free people. When you live by principle, your life may become more difficult, because there's certain compromises you can't make, and you can't always take the easy way, but then you become free, and you can hold your head high, and then you have dignity. For the Sufis, to be free, is to know that everything is in the hands of God, and that everything that God created is totally under His power and His will and His knowledge. And so therefore you put your reliance completely on Him, and you know that you cannot do anything in and of yourself. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power to avoid evil. There is no strength to do good except by Allah. And you know this is a reality. So even though I do have free will, theologically, I acquire my actions, and I am responsible for them. But I know that whenever I do good, that is tawfiq. That is success that Allah has given me, and it is fadl, it is bounty. And whenever I do less than that, that's really what I deserve. That's me. So when you become free like that, then you're not attached to others. You're not attached to other human beings in the sense that they can make you compromise. And in the sense that you fear them instead of fearing God. And then you become free. And that's the kind of person who can speak the truth in anybody's face. And calmly, without fear. Not under any tension. And that's the kind of person who can give freely. That's the kind of person who, although he has a wife and he has children, he can go and sell the coat off his back to take care of his guest. Because I will do whatever is pleasing to God, and God will provide. MashaAllah. Anything else? Any questions? Anything you'd like to talk about? Inshallah. Yeah.
Sheikh, if we start to learn about the benefit of the basmala, and we're finding over the years that we still have trouble saying it at the times that we need to say it, remember it retrospectively, is there any advice that you could have to bring it, be more mindful about it?
So, if we forget to use the basmala, is there any advice that you have, so that we could be more mindful of it? I think this is all, part of, being conscious and being in the present moment and not taking things for granted. That, when you say the basmala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, don't just say it like that, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Think about what it means. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin, I eat, I open my door, I lock my door, I unlock my door, I put on my clothes, I eat my food. When you say it in the prayer, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, I recite this prayer. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. These are the words that establish the heavens and the earth and everything in them. As we said when we talked about the hikam last night, some of you were here, I know that others of you couldn't make it, but there is no act of worship, of goodness, of dhikr, but that it radiates from the witnessing of God in your heart. That God has manifested Himself to you in your heart. And if you're here to seek knowledge and listen to Imam Zaid, that means that you have a shuhud in your heart. All of us have that, as we explained, from the beginning of time. When Allah manifested Himself to us as our Lord. Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? So this is your first shuhud that you have. And this is why you're here right now. But people who are really committed to Allah, committed to the deen, who want to build, who want to help the center, who want to come here as much as they can to benefit from Shaykh Faraz, Imam Zaid, or others. These are people who have strong shuhud in their heart, even though they're not aware. And this is something that you should treasure. And this is something you want to increase. But they also have fikr. They have reflection, thought. And this is important too. That when you pray your prayer, Allahu Akbar, let the world disappear. Allah is the Kabir. He is the great. And everything that approaches Him is insignificant in the context of His grandeur. So like, I don't worry about people anymore. I don't worry about the future. I just worry about this prayer. Okay, you stop and think about what you're doing. Don't just say it, Allahu Akbar. You can even say, what does this mean? So that you're not saying it out of habit. And then Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Think about that. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The Lord of the worlds, who lifts some people up, who puts other people down, who gives, who takes away, who makes some people felicitous, like you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, who deprives others of felicity. He does whatever He wills. Get into your prayer. So this is one thing, that when you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, don't say it bi-laqlaqatil insan, bi-laqlaqatil lisan. Don't just say it by, repeating the sounds, but think about what you're saying. And then it becomes very meaningful. And then when you say it, inshallah, you'll be present when you say it. Many people when they eat Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, they don't even think about what they said. But you think about it, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So that's a very good, you have to train yourself to think. Because again, why are you here? Because you have shuhud in your heart, even though you're not conscious of it. And you're also here because you do think. You do reflect. You do set priorities. And you do make intentions. Okay, and you don't just come here out of habit either. You don't have to come here. You've got 1,000 other things you can do. So all of these good acts, they reflect something hidden in your heart, a light that is in your heart. And they reflect also the fact that you use your mind. Many people, many Muslims, Allah guide them, they don't think at all. They do the craziest things, sometimes horrible things. Maybe they kill people, like their wife or their daughters, as happened in this case here, which I heard about. It's like, what kind of people were these? These are people who have no shuhud and no fikr. They have no, it's like they are mahroom, deprived of that because of things they've done. That's always the way it is, that they put themselves in prisons of darkness, of passion, blameworthy passion, of blameworthy appetite, of blameworthy self-gratification, and they became darker and darker and darker until they can even kill their own family. This is damnation. How do you face Allah with that? And in a lot of things, when we look at our Muslim communities, it's like, don't we ever think about things? We just do things. And that's not a good sign. And Imam al-Haddad, may Allah be pleased with him, he says, Al-'adatu idha rasakhat nasakhat. A habit, it could mean custom too, but here it particularly means personal habit. Idha rasakhat, if it's, established, if you, establish a good habit, nasakhat, it will abrogate, it will repeal, it will get rid of bad habits. So this is why you have to always look at your habits. Don't look at the internet too much. Don't spend too much time with your email. And don't be texting all the time. If you establish a bad habit, it will get rid of good habits. Like thinking, for example. It's good to do dhikr, but like sometimes can't you just drive your car down the street or the highway and think? A lot of people can't do that. They can't think. They can stare. They can sort of be in a stupor, just looking out the window, but they can't think. Okay, so, you want to establish good habits. And when you establish a good habit, like waking up to the basmalah, nasakhat, it will abolish the bad habit, which is not paying attention to it. If we can learn to pray the Salat of the Muqarrabeen, to pray the prayer of the righteous, those who are drawn near to Allah, then your bad habits, my bad habits, of all these prayers we prayed that we don't even know what rak'ah we're in. We don't even know what surah we recited. That goes then. It's gone. And inshallah, never to come back. So that when you pray, this is the most important dhikr of all. That we are going to pray right and be filled with light. So, inshallah, may Allah, and again, like Fatiha. Al-Fatiha, this surah is so incredibly beautiful. This is your story. This is the history of humanity. This is the day of judgment. This is a surah which, if we wake up to it, it's like you really are in awe of it. And you have to, and the more you learn, the more it will be like that. Why is it? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds, who lifts some people up, puts others down, gives and takes away, makes some sa'id and some shaqi. I have to be humble. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the all-merciful, who gives people eyes, who gives people ears, who gives us opposable thumbs. Because all these blessings that we have as human beings that we share, or that animals have, or other things have, these are a manifestation of the Rahman. He gives His mercy to all. The rain falls on everyone. Ar-Rahim, who gives you special mercies, so that you have your eyes, you have your ears, you can see things other people don't see. You can feel things other people don't feel. Just like a poet, who can just get the right word. Brother Ahmed James was with us in West Africa last year, and he fell in love with the Mandingos, with the West Africans around us who were really beautiful people. I loved them too. And he said, Dr. Umar, he said, these Africans don't wear masks. Like they are what they are. They're pure, they're real, they're open, they're transparent, they're honest people. But see, that's the poet. They don't wear masks. What a beautiful expression. So, Ahmed James, he sees what I don't see. He hears what I don't hear. He expresses it in this beautiful way. This is Ar-Rahim. And, may we wake up to these things, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. May we wake up to this, inshallah. And not be ghaful, jahul, steeped in negligence and steeped in ignorance. Most human beings are that way. May we get knowledge, again, may we learn the purpose of this life before it's over. You've no doubt had wonderful people die. Imam Zaid is talking about Sheikh Abdul-Razak Tahir, Allah have mercy upon him. But like that experience of death is a big thing. And I remember when my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, died. I had been a Muslim at that time for maybe 2 years, and my grandfather was very interested in my Islam, more than any other relative, and I hope that maybe he got some benefit from that. He died in the month of Ramadan. He couldn't talk, and I come and sit at the side of his bed and read to him from the translation of the Qur'an, from Hadith, things like that. But when he died, it was a big thing. It's like, it's just, I don't know how to express it. But I remember that the night that he died, I went back to his home with my grandmother, and I got out the old photo albums. And my grandfather had been born in the 1890s. And he had grown up in a time when people rode horses. There were no automobiles, and they had buggies and they had wagons and things like that. And then they had the cars come, the Model Ts, the Model As. And I could see that all in the pictures coming up to 1972 when he died. And, but it seemed like this passed just like that. And I could remember my life with him. And it seemed like it was just yesterday, even though it was maybe, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So life goes really fast, and especially when death comes, you really see that, this is what life is all about, is to prepare for what comes after death. So we ask Allah to make us aware of Him, to bring our hearts to life, to wake up our hearts, and to remove from us negligence. أَيْقِظْ قُلُوبَنَا لَكَ وَنَبِّهْنَا مِنَ الْغَفْلَةِ عَنْكَ. And then we begin to work for what comes after death. Al-Kayyis, the smart person, the intelligent person, as the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the clever person, the Kayyis, is the one who dana nafsahu, who judges himself, who takes himself or herself to account, وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, and who works for what comes after death. That's the clever person. And the fool is the one who doesn't do that. The fool never takes himself to account. And if you take him to account, he won't talk to you again. How do you dare say that about me? You don't know who I am. And then he's just living, as Ibn Abd-Allah says, that the fool gets up and he says, what am I going to do today? And, the believer gets up and says, what will Allah will for me to do today? What does Allah have in store for me? Maybe when you go down the street, you're going to have an accident. Today at Jum'ah, this young man in the mosque, he had a heart attack or something. And one of the directors of the mosque gets up after prayer to make announcements, and people are trying to tell him that, look, we've got a brother who's maybe dead here. And it took him a long time to figure that out, that he couldn't actually make his announcement. But it's like, that was will, and it was very clear that we didn't know what to do. People are all surrounding him, and he's trying to say, get away. He should go over there and say, get them away. Forget your announcement. Get the people away, and then who knows how to take care of this person. And it took a long time before somebody called 911. But, Allah had willed to test us with that on this Friday. So, inshallah, may Allah wake us up. And especially, this Seekers Hub and, similar places that you have in Toronto, some of which I've been able to visit, and I look forward to visiting more. These are places really to be the hubs of your life. Come here and get knowledge. Come here and do worship. Come here and do dhikr. But come here especially to build your life as a community, that begins to do things, here and outside, that really make Islam thrive, in this environment. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Does somebody raise their hand? Okay.
So we have 3 online questions. The first question that we have is, could God possibly be considered a blessing, a ni'mah?
The question is, could God be considered a blessing? God is the giver of blessings. And the greatest blessing that God can give you is to wake you up to the reality of God. So, God is a blessing in the sense that you believe in Him. But He is the giver of blessings, and we don't refer to God as a blessing. The blessing is that you know Him and that you wake up. As we said before, as Ibn Abd-Allah says, God is not veiled from you. Allah is more manifest than this microphone, or this one, or my hand. But he's not a body. He's not in time and space. But he is closer than the jugular vein. Allah is more zahir. He is more manifest than anything I see, than anything I can see. And he is more hidden than anything that is hidden. Okay? So he is not veiled from us. We are veiled from him. And the ability to know God and to witness God. And we don't witness him like I witness you. That's a totally different thing. But this comes from the unveiling of the self. So that the light of the heart and the spirit, the ruh and the sir can shine through. Because you have that shuhud deep in you. In you, you have diamonds. You know, diamonds are created where? Deep in the earth. Miles down in the earth. Where it's hot. You know, and where, the pressure on them is in, millions of tons. And they are under that for sometimes millions of years. And then they're brought to the surface by volcanic action. That's how they get to the surface of the earth. But you have in your heart, deep down there, precious diamonds. You have light. An-nasu ma'adin. Human beings are mines of gold and silver and diamonds and emeralds and rubies. But you have to unveil that. And the ruh that you're created with, the spirit, it is daraka. It is filled with perception. It is filled with knowledge. That's why also when you ask a question about the letters, when people get unveiled, they also see things. And because they're not prophets and they're not infallible, then you can benefit from them or not as you like. Just you can listen politely and you can find that meaningful to you, or you can do something else. But the fruit, the seed of Islam produces a tree, and the tree bears fruit, and the fruit gives people nourishment, so that people discover things, they learn things. But if you purify yourself and you unveil yourself, then you are filled with knowledge. You are filled with understanding. It's there in you. So God is not veiled from us, we are veiled from ourselves. We are veiled from him by the veils we have on ourselves. Yes?
Okay, two more questions. One person is asked for advice on finding good company.
One person asked advice about finding good company. I would say that if that person's online, they've already found a lot of it. Imam Zaid is good company. Sheikh Faraz Rabbani is extremely good company. And I emphasize that. I know that people here are aware of his worth. But he is a true scholar. And he is a sincere human being. And he is a lover of God and his messenger. And all the lessons that he presents, are extremely well done. They are well done in such a way that they will, inshallah, ultimately constitute a curriculum. Because what he does is really, he boils it down. He doesn't waste a word. He doesn't waste a word. So this is a precious scholar who has the gift of scholarship and who has the love of Allah and his messenger. And today he gave a khutbah that was beautiful, really beautiful. And inshallah, it affected a lot of people. And I was really happy to hear that khutbah. It was on, domestic abuse. And it was extremely good. So if you're online, you found good company. Don't let it go. But as Ibn Abd-Allah says, that do not keep the company of any person except the one who elevates your state and who points you to Allah. And for you to keep the company of an ignorant man or woman who is not content with himself, who's not full of himself, not arrogant, it's better for you than to keep the company of a scholar who is content with himself, who is full of himself, whom you cannot approach, whom you cannot question. Shaykh Faraz al-Bani, you could deal with him any way you want. You could be impolite to him, you can ask him questions, you can tell him that you're wrong. He would not be offended by any of that. He would probably tell you a joke or something. Whereas you have, and Imam Malik used to say that I don't know is half of knowledge. May Allah enable us to say those words, I don't know. That's a sign that you know. But for a lot of scholars today, for you to say to them, say I don't know, would be like saying take a knife and stab yourself. They can't do it. So the arrogant scholar, and a lot of scholars, Allah guide them, they're very difficult people. Very proud, very arrogant. They look down on others. That's not good company. Even though they've got a lot of knowledge, they know many hadith, they know a lot of Qur'an, but they miss the boat somewhere. Because if you get this knowledge properly, you will be humble. And you will not be content with yourself. And you will be open to humble people, to simple people, to people who need your help, and you will be open to criticism. This is the way our great scholars have been. So, inshallah, as Jesus said, peace be upon him, seek and you will find. If you want good companions, you will find them. And even if you begin to look among the people around you, you'll see that a lot of them are very good people. I've never been anywhere, but in that place, there were people who were really good people. And you keep their company, it benefits you.
One last question, Sidi. Second last, because the last one just came. Someone's father has been going through a lot of trials and tests in the past few years, and he gets into a state of mind where why is this only happening to me? The person is asking advice on assisting him through this.
Well, that's a difficult question for me to answer. I don't know how to answer that question. For me to answer that question, I need to know more about the person. I think that's a personal question. But unfortunately, a lot of Muslims are like that. They cannot accept what has happened to them. They cannot accept loss, deprivation, sickness, trial, and you have to do that. And this is why it is so important to get the knowledge of Allah and to draw close to Him and to hold to Him, so that you know how to sail the ship and you know how to anchor the ship, and when the storm comes, you know how to run the ship through the storm. And people who neglect their deen, for a lot of us, our deen is just a marginal thing we do, so that we've got to go to Jummah, so just show up. You come in late, you can leave early, after they finish. And the important things in our lives are so many other things. My business, my orders, my backlog, my employees, my exam that's coming up, my marriage, my children, whatever. And those are false priorities. Your deen should be the number one priority. Your Lord should be everything. And then around that, you build the beautiful orchard of your life, with a blessed marriage. Again, as Imam Zaid says, that no supplication, is delayed that is by God. You know, that whatever you do by God is easy, whatever you do by yourself is difficult. Anything you do relying on God is easy. Anything you do relying on yourself is difficult. So, you know, if you know God in times of ease, like these times that most of us are in right now, you know, then He will know you in times of difficulty. But a lot of people, they live their lives in negligence. You know, they never learn their deen anyway. They don't know their Lord. They don't even know basic theology. They've never done dhikr. Maybe they don't even pray. And if they pray, maybe they're not awake in their prayer. And then when, you know, consequences come, they are destroyed. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal, you know, to relieve us from that. And in the case of personal afflictions, because what I said were general words, you know, then, you know, I think it's good to know that personal situation and to talk with that person. And inshallah, may that person find people who can give them a good answer to that question. But pray, you know, pray for the father. That I'm sure that the person does that. Okay? Nothing else? So I'm really happy to see you, and I'm happy to be here. I like what I see. You know, I think that what's going on here is very, very dynamic. I like the other things I've seen in the city too, like the low tree. I haven't seen very much yet, but I will, inshallah. I hope to. But, you know, take this, this blessing to heart and, you know, keep it going. Keep it going, because it will grow. It will grow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And in any case, we are doing this by Allah, inshallah. For Allah, inshallah. You know, we're not doing it to compete with another organization, or, you know, to get that big building with the beautiful, you know, landscaping. And no, that's not important to the people here. That I'm very sure of. And it's certainly not important to me. And our community that we build is in our hearts. Our hearts that, you know, are compatible with each other and that respect and love each other. And out of that, you know, the beautiful buildings and so forth, you know, this will all come. This is beautiful. Look what you've done. Look how you painted it. Look at the signs that have been put up. And it's just really, everything is well done. Everything here is well done. And inshallah, it will lead to better and better things. And, you know, pray for everyone here. You know, pray for Sheikh Faraz. Pray for Brother Nader, pray for Dr. Banu, for Michelle Young, for all the people who work so hard here. And I know, you know, a lot of you contribute as well. You know, you're the ones who do a lot of these things. So inshallah, out of this good will come great good, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We're not interested in being on the front page of the newspaper. You know, we're not interested in, you know, advertisements everywhere and so forth. You know, let the people come and benefit and bring more. And nothing affects like direct personal contact. We live in an age of media where we think that to get over, we've got to get in the media. And often that's not true at all. You know, and in fact, I mean, for the media to work for you, you've got to put lots of money in it, day after day, because the media is so trite and it is so cheap, really, that you don't remember anything you see on it. You know, how many times have you watched the news and then you could write down after you watched the news what he said? You know, it just came in one ear, one in another. That's the nature of the beast. And it creates impressions, emotions, you know, political contexts. It has an agenda. But it's very difficult for you to compete with it, especially if you want to do something profound. But when you want to do something profound, the best way to do that is one-on-one, day after day, week after week, as Shaykh Faraz Rabbani is doing. I will teach you this week after week, month after month. We come together and then we are transformed. One of the sheikhs of Al-Azhar asked a friend of mine, how do I teach the truth in sound bites? Now, there's some people that have the gift to do that, like Malcolm X. Malcolm X is the master of communicating powerful messages with sound bites, metaphors, and things like that. That's a gift. And that's a precious gift. But, a lot of people don't have that gift. And our deen is profound. Our deen, requires thought, reflection, a heart that's open. And it requires you to be active in acquiring and in applying what you learn. And these are not things that are taught, in an impressionistic way or with sound bites or just in a few minutes. These are things that take cultivation. Day after day, week after week. And that's the idea here. There are so many good things happening in Canada and the United States. Soon we'll have the RIS. I was told that their enrollment this year is already much larger than it was last year at this time. And last year they had a good turnout. So inshallah this year they have a good turnout. Now that's really wonderful to have so many people there. And inshallah they will benefit tremendously, from the good that is presented there. And from the retreat that takes place after that. But that, and in other forums that are similar to that, they create sparks. And they often change people's lives. And they bring people to life. But in order to build a community that is truly dynamic and that becomes a vanguard in the society and that creates the kind of society that you want for yourself as a grandparent with grandchildren, and that is a benefit to the society at large, and that can bring people in to God's religion, then we have got to begin to work one-on-one, day by day, week by week, and to do what we're doing and gradually to begin to do more. Like, for example, take care of the homeless. That's a very good project. It's a fard kifaya. It's a societal obligation. If we don't do it, we bear iniquity. We bear a degree of iniquity for that. When we do it, because none of you truly believes, if he goes to sleep satiated and his neighbor is hungry, and those are neighbors. None of you believes until he loves for his neighbor what he loves for himself. Sahih hadith, which many believe is a commentary on none of you believes until he loves for his brother or sister what he loves for himself. Because who is your brother? Any human being. And that's what Imam Nawawi and other great commentators say, and they base that on their knowledge of the deen, and also like on the hadith of the Jah, because it's the same hadith. None of you believes until he loves for his neighbor what he loves for himself. And the Prophet's neighbors were Jews and Muslims, and maybe even in the beginning, people who hadn't embraced the deen yet, who were mushrikeen, who were animists, people who associated idolaters. But the neighbor has a right, and the Muslim neighbor has a greater right, and the Muslim neighbor who is your kinsperson has an even greater right. But the rights don't abrogate each other. So when we begin to do these things, inshallah, selecting pilot projects that are strategic and beneficial, then inshallah the community will begin to grow. And then you'll create a community that will be maybe a crutch for you if you need a crutch, because maybe you get sick, maybe when you're older you need help, and that will also take care of you, take care of your family, take care of others, and begin to bring this deen to life. So that it's not just 5 prayers a day at the mosque and Jumu'ah and Taraweeh in Ramadan, but it becomes that, and then the whole culture and the whole beautiful society, the whole civilization of Islam that grows up around that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah give us tawfiq. May Allah give us tawfiq. And always, this is freedom. That can I do that? Do I know how to do that? Do I have the ability to do that? Absolutely not. No. Impossible for me. Does my Lord know how to do that? Does my Lord have the knowledge and the wisdom and the power to bring that about? Absolutely. So we just do the best we can do. Step 1, step 2. And you might call them baby steps. But after baby steps come giant steps. Little by little. And you can't climb a mountain until you take a single step. So inshallah, Allah enable us, to be content with what He has willed, and may He enable us, to use whatever gifts we have to make this work. And again, we have got to be generous people. We have societal obligations. One of the biggest problems with Muslims today is that we come to an understanding of our religion as just private, personal obligations. Fard ayn. You prayed your 5 prayers. You're cool. You pray your fast of Ramadan. MashaAllah. You made Hajj. You're off the hook. No. Those are personal obligations. You have societal obligations. And societal obligations are the heaviest. Fard kifaya. Any societal obligation, and the societal obligations are everything this community needs to flourish as a dynamic Muslim community and to take care of the needs of ourselves and our neighbors. Every time we fail in a societal obligation, for example, look at the way the chickens are being treated, that are being slaughtered, that never saw the sunrise. Look at the cattle, who are brought up in stinking stockyards that smell with stench to heaven, and never allowed to graze. And they're not even allowed sometimes to eat hay or to graze on grass which they were created to eat. And they eat things like corn which they were not created to eat. In Islamic law, you can't do that. You must feed the animal what it was created to eat. And you must let it graze if it's a grazing animal. Otherwise, you have no right to that animal. They're not mushrooms that you grow in the dark. So what about those chickens? What about the sheep? What about the goats? They have rights. We don't eat pigs. But pigs are created by God and they have rights too. We cannot be content in a society in which pigs are also treated like that. Pigs have a right to live on their own, and Christians can raise their pigs, but raise them decently. And we should call them to do that too. So these are societal obligations. And when we fail in a societal obligation, every one of us is atham. That's basic usul al-fiqh. Every one of us is iniquitous. Even the beautiful brother or sister who prays all night and who has memorized the Qur'an and lives the Qur'an, he is iniquitous too. Because what about the poor in the street tonight that are freezing? You didn't do anything. Your community didn't do anything. If the community begins to do something, then he's not iniquitous anymore. His prayer will be accepted. A lot of times in the Muslim world, like, what's wrong with us today? Why don't we get anything? We hear things happening in our countries. May Allah guide them. It's like, no human being would do that. No human being with, a mustard seed of intellect would say such a stupid thing. And yet we do. And it's like, what's the secret? One of the secrets behind that is that we do not do societal obligations. We don't do them. We don't care about them. Look at our schools in many Muslim countries. Pitiful. Look at the way that we teach Qur'an. We just have kids parrot it. They don't know what they're saying or anything. And he'll be a hafiz, who's leading the side. He doesn't even know what he's reciting. He couldn't even give you tafsir. It's like, yes, it's good you start them like that as children, but you take it further. Teach them Arabic, and teach them to recite beautifully. And if people get tired listening to the Qur'an that they don't understand, maybe you could teach them too. And maybe you could just shorten the prayer. But don't butcher the Qur'an and recite it on steroids. This is not right. This is an insult to God and His Prophet. And this is our culture in many places. It's our culture. The hafid they want is the one that can finish the surah as fast as possible, so that they think they get the reward of the surah without paying the price. This is idiocy. This is idiocy. This is transgression. This is culture gone wrong. And culture is very important. We will talk about it, I guess, tomorrow. But, culture has to always be cleaned up too. Because you get these cultural developments that are just insane. Insane. I was in India. I heard, the brother came and said, I'm Hafiz, and I'm going to lead the Taraweeh. And after the Imam led Isha, I thought, Alhamdulillah. Because the Imam who led Isha, I didn't know what surah is, right? Just like that. He recites so fast. As if it were a race. And then the Hafiz gets up, he's twice as fast. Qaf! He recites Surah Qaf. I know that because he said Qaf at the beginning. I didn't get a single verse. And he thinks that's cool. That is not. I was so angry. I was so angry. And, a Shaykh was with me and he said, calm down. Okay? He said, if we want to be of any benefit here, we cannot, you just leave them alone for right now. That this is a culture, this is developed, and you can't change it like that. But inshallah, Allah enable us, to do the deen, no shortcuts. You want to take a shortcut? Satan can show you a lot. Dr. Jackson told us in the pilgrimage about, a book that he had read as a youth, in which this gangster who takes people to the laundry is asked one day by one of the people who helps him that, don't you feel any guilt? And the gangster, I don't remember what he says exactly, but one of the things he says is that, look, I can't take anybody to the laundry who doesn't want to take a shortcut. In other words, they want to get what they're not supposed to get in a way they're not supposed to get it. He said, anyone who wants to do that, I can take them to the laundry and I don't have any qualms of conscience. He said, people who want to be straight and do things right, he said, I can't do anything with them anyway. And the Satan's the same way. But a lot of us Muslims today, it's like, can't we get this deen down to 20%? Why do we have to do 100%? That's so hard. And why in our madrasas should we teach a lot of things? Let's just get a curriculum that turns out these clones, who really don't know anything. But they've memorized a lot, and they cannot apply it. That's not right. These are shortcuts. Let's do it right. Let's learn how to teach correctly. And let's build a community that inshallah provides great guidance. And have people, and again, you see, Islam spreads on the periphery. It spreads wherever Muslims are converting non-Muslims. Because in order to do that, they've got to learn to make sense of this religion. And then they know it themselves. You can go to a lot of Muslim countries. You don't have to know anything about gender in Islam. You don't have to know anything about, banking or finance. You don't have to answer any difficult questions, right? Because they'll never be asked. You come here, you've got to answer the questions, right? Like, what does this verse mean? What does this verse mean? Or, what is Islam's position on evolution? In some countries, if you ask that question, you might get hit. They might throw something at you. It's like, astaghfirullah, how do you ask that question? You've got to ask that question. And we have a right to ask those questions. But, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us understanding and to open our hearts and to enable us to build something really beautiful. Really, and quality is what counts, not quantity. Quality is what counts. Create, a nexus. Create, a hub of people who are really good. And then it will grow. بإذن الله تعالى. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضى وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى. علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. آمين. اللهم نور قلوبنا، اللهم نور قلوبنا، اللهم نور أفكارنا، اللهم نور عقولنا، اللهم وفقنا للفكر، اللهم وفقنا للشهود يا رب العالمين، وجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين الموفقين بحق محمد وآله الغر. الفاتحة.